Am I the asshole for kicking my cousin out of my wedding? A 29 female asked my two cousins 22 female G and 16 female L to be in my wedding as candle lighters. When I asked them, I had told them I really wanted them to feel like part of the wedding party, so I wanted them to get dresses like the other bridesmaids as well as take pictures with the bridesmaids and rest of the wedding party. Both seemed very excited and agreed. A few months go by, and I get a text from my aunt saying she can't believe it, but Elle has a volleyball tournament that same weekend as my wedding and doesn't know what the times will be. Initially they said they would try to do both. Mind you, the tournament is 3 hours away from the wedding. But as time went on, it wasn't a question of if she would make the tournament, it was a question of if she would like the wedding. So finally, it was time for me to make the programs for the wedding, so I had to point blank ask if she would be at the wedding or not. And again, I got a roundabout answer of if they're done by that time she will be there. So finally, I made the hard choice to just take her out of the wedding. I didn't want someone in my wedding party who wasn't full-on committed to being there for me. I had gone to so many of my cousin's volleyball games where the day had been about her, and this day my wedding I wanted it to be about me and my now husband. In my mind she was only in 10th grade, so she still had 2 more years left to play in high school, plus she plays club volleyball in the wintertime, so missing one volleyball tournament should not be a big deal, especially for something like a wedding. I felt so hurt that it was even a question, and not only that, was hearing from my other cousin G that all she wanted to do was play volleyball and she couldn't care less about the wedding. Now our families are not very close since everything happened. We haven't even done holidays together. For context, I have no sisters and this is the only set of cousins I have. My mom only had one brother and my dad is an only child. The collision of sports culture and wedding culture. No one can win this one. Nah. But some advice: let this go. And stop keeping score with a 16-year-old. You're more than a decade older than her. The more I read this sub, the less I like weddings. Well, like, you didn't really kick her out. She committed, then couldn't commit anymore. The stuff about wanting a child to make a day about you, a 29-year-old. That's a little gross. Was G still planning on participating in your wedding and skipping her sister's volleyball? You're the asshole for holding a grudge against a child. She's in high school. Sports mean a lot to her, just as your wedding means a lot to you. Sure, kick her out of your wedding, but to sever relations is childish. You're the asshole. Not for removing Kuin from wedding, but for continuing to bear the grudge afterward. This is a kid who did something kid-like, enthusiastically agree to something without thinking it through and had to back up. Let it go. She is a dumb kid who did a dumb thing. Don't be a dumb adult doing dumb kid things back. Hurt her for being upset. A 16-year-old wouldn't drop everything for your wedding. She's a kid, of course she cares more about volleyball than her cousin's wedding. Is candle lighter a role that gets a mention on a program? How interesting. I mean, I would never, ever have a printed program for my wedding anyway. You're the asshole because you're considering this whole thing kicking her out instead of simply adjusting her role. Yeah, the day is about you, but it's super weird to be this upset about a high schooler making her volleyball tournament instead of candle lighting. Not sure this was much of a close family relationship if you're being this catty over a 16-year-old playing sports. Nah, except your aunt. I think your hurt is understandable, but you're lacking some perspective. However, I don't think you're an R. It strikes me that most of the hurt could have been avoided if your aunt had just called it for her daughter and let you know they couldn't commit to the wedding after all. Out of respect for you and the time and effort that goes into planning a wedding, and out of respect for her daughter who is a teenager and probably understandably wanted to prioritize her team sport over her cousin's wedding but didn't want to hurt you. This to me sounds like OP holds their relationship a lot closer than they view it. OP sees them as sisters. On the other hand, OP is just as important to them. I was an athlete as well, and I would never hold a preseason tournament as more important than a close family member's wedding. OP is Natar and should just continue living her life knowing this fact and deal with it as she sees fit. I would distance myself a little bit but not cut them off completely since she obviously loves them. Maybe it's just because of my culture, and living outside of America. She's 16 so she's not an R but OP is definitely not TA. I could never ever prioritize anything above a family event especially if I was asked to play a role in the proceedings of the day like it's so confusing to me that there is even a choice. ESH fine for you to ask her to step down. Not fine for your attitude on how she has years to play volleyball etc. Her priorities don't have to align with yours. Their unwillingness to give you a direct answer is really shitty though, and they can't expect you to hold a spot just in case. Info: if they were so close why wasn't I the one asked to be a bridesmaid? I'm just curious because the first part of your story makes them seem more like an afterthought but the second part makes them seem pretty important. Not the asshole. You needed a commitment which was perfectly understandable. Also, you didn't freak out the first time you heard about the tournament. You waited for her to decide until the point at which you absolutely had to know. And of course hearing from someone else that she didn't care about being in your wedding was hurtful. I drop that family as well. Not the asshole. You really didn't have a choice. You can't be stressed out wondering if she's going to show up or not. Plus she'll need time to clean up. If she makes it for the ceremony, great, but you don't need the stress of wondering if you need to make changes to the ceremony the day of. You're the asshole. Your wedding is the most important thing in your life right now, and that's okay. It's not the most important thing in everyone else's life, and expecting it to be, especially for a 16-year-old who has no control over when her sports tournaments are scheduled, and cutting her out of your life for not prioritizing you, makes you TA. Nah. She's 16. Not only is she still a teen who isn't thinking of weddings, she is part of a team. Which means commitment. On top of that, it's a tournament. And while it is completely understandable that your wedding is important to you, it's also completely understandable that the tournament is to her. And frankly, she seems to work hard at it, is dedicated. Expecting a teen to prioritize your wedding above all else isn't fair. Not the asshole. It's your wedding day and you had every right to expect full commitment from your cousin. It's understandable that you were hurt by her lack of enthusiasm and prioritization of volleyball over your special day. Not the asshole. Look, I can understand that your wedding probably isn't a huge thing to a 16-year-old, but your aunt is an adult and she should be teaching her daughter to honor her commitments since she said yes to being in your wedding before she knew there was a volleyball tournament. And you didn't even kick her out. She refused to commit, so obviously, you had to make a final decision. That said, I think you'll be happier in the long run if you can forgive your cousin and move on and work to reconcile and be close again. And then again, maybe not. Not the asshole. I think the wedding of a close family member outranks a volleyball tournament. At the very least, you deserved a straight answer about whether or not they planned on attending. Hope you have a fabulous day. I would have dealt directly with my aunt, and not beleaguered a 16-year-old. You're the asshole. In 10th grade her volleyball tournament takes precedent. Her mom telling you that the tournament fell the weekend of your wedding was your signal Thatch had another commitment. You're the asshole. Who are you going to have your next dispute with, a 12-year-old? I can't make a decision on the verdict, but man, the way you're beefing with everyone over this teenager choosing her passion over your wedding rubs me the wrong way. Actually, I can make the decision, AITA. You got those main character syndrome vibes, and anyone who doesn't conform to your fantasy gets cut off.